What's going on, Workforce? Brian here for Work to Game, and I really hesitated on first calling this a review for Final Fantasy VIII Remastered. Honestly, I think there's going to be a lot of things that you can take from the game. You can be excited about it, you can be disappointed in it. It's not all positive, especially what people are saying over on Steam, and we'll jump into that here a little bit later in the video. But I wanted to give you guys my story around Final Fantasy VIII and why I'm excited that I have the remastered version, the features that I like, and essentially my plan for the game as we go through September. The reason I hesitated calling a review is that typically we like to have the game beaten before we put out a review. Obviously there is exceptions to games like MMOs where you might beat the MSQ, you might put in hundreds of hours, but what really qualifies as, I guess, enough time spent in any kind of game? And obviously we lean more into the more time is better when it comes down to a review. I never beat Final Fantasy VIII. This is my third playthrough though, and overall I'm over 100 hours into the game. Now, not this game, not remastered. I've spent over 100 hours in the world of Final Fantasy VIII, and it's never been the greatest love of any of the Final Fantasies that I've had. In fact, it's been my number one pile of shame game for a long time, because I never beat it, and it just kind of felt wrong in a weird way. So, it's not really wrong. You can play these games, you can have your favorites. There's nothing wrong with how people perceive these games. That's one of the beauties of the Final Fantasy series overall. But here's what I mean by it. On PlayStation, when I first had Final Fantasy VIII, at some point I got to right towards the end of disc 3, and my memory card got corrupted. That sucks. It happens. It's a risk when you go, especially with third party. I was really poor at the time, so it is what it is. Anyway, later I was able to get the game on PlayStation 3. We're really excited, played through that. Had a friend really teach me the Guardian and the Junction system together, because the first time I was casting magic, doing it all wrong. And now obviously he taught me that, don't cast magic, junction it, become super powerful god mode, and just go nuts. And I really enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed the system. I liked the intricacies. I liked collecting the magic. Obviously it is a hassle when you're just standing around stocking magic for a fight, right? Anyway, one of the cool things about this and why I've decided to kind of jump back in, thanks to people on stream for pointing it out, you can go obviously 3x mode by clicking down on the left stick, you can go invincible mode by clicking down on the right stick, and you can actually turn off all encounters by clicking down on both sticks. And you might be asking, why would you want to turn off encounters at all? Well, you've always been able to turn off encounters pretty much in Final Fantasy VIII. That was one of the real cool things, is the enemies actually scale to your level. One of the things I didn't understand at the time as a kid was like, why am I just seeing the same enemies kind of over and over and over again? Well, those enemies just level up with you. So you could go back to any kind of zone before, and it's going to have at least a modicum of challenge. The enemies are going to level up, they'll have new magic for you to draw, so on and so forth. But you can turn it off, you're going to have the boss fights and things like that, but it essentially allows you to kind of set your own difficulty for the game. Obviously, I think the card game that this game has is probably one of the most, or the best, and some of the tweets that I'm seeing from friends are they haven't really played the game, they're just getting lost in the whole card system in and of itself. So maybe Square Enix should just release a standalone game that's about the card system, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyhow, as I'm playing the game, obviously you can see it's in the 3:4 aspect ratio. Personally, I, for some reason, am not bothered by it. Honestly, I would love all games to be in the 16:9 aspect ratio, but we're just obviously not there. When I look at it, the reason I'm playing in invincible mode and 3 times the speed is I figured I would get back to where I left off twice. When I traded in my PlayStation 3 for a PlayStation 4 and Final Fantasy VIII didn't come with me, ultimately I lost my save again. So, I want to beat this game, and I want to beat it the right way. And I want to get to where I left off as quickly as possible so I can finally just take this game off the pile of shame and turn it into, yes, I've beaten that game. It just feels wrong not to have beaten it. 7, yes. 6, yes. 5, not yet. And maybe I'll have to go back and look at 5. But yeah, 9, 10, technically 11. It depends on your definition. 12, of course, 13, and obviously 14 in this case. And 15 as well. I forgot all about that, that game. Anyhow, this is So I guess the real raw thing I want to point out is that when we talk about it, and I'm going to jump into the negative reviews that people are sharing on Steam for you. If you're curious, you can check that out, and I'll come back with some more thoughts just in a second. But the one thing that really feels out of place, the one thing that really is jarring, is the transition into FMV. In fact, the visuals of the characters are so much more intricate and so much more enjoyable visually that whenever it does transition into the FMV, it does feel like an uncanny valley moment. It loses what was originally the magic, obviously, of the time with the backgrounds and the camera angles and things like that. And ultimately, it is a little bit jarring. In fact, to the point where I'm just like, can we get this scene over with so I can get back to the game? Visually, I'm really impressed. Gameplay-wise, junction system's all there. Obviously, endless tutorials for you to dive into and play and enjoy. I haven't had no negative experiences. I'm currently playing on Xbox. I'll play on Xbox because honestly, I want to help send the message to Microsoft that we need more JRPGs on the platform. And I just think that is the best use of my money. I thought about picking it up on Switch, but I decided not to, namely because I have to compete with my daughter for the Switch, and I can play on the Xbox, and my game saved in the cloud, so I can go anywhere, pick this game up from anybody who has an Xbox, and ideally at some point probably a PC. Anyway, that's a whole other topic for a whole other video, and I apologize for that digression. So it's at this time actually I want to dive a little bit into what people are saying about the remastered version, because it's not obviously all sunshine and rainbows. Obviously, when I was looking at the reviews and just going off of Steam alone, take it for what you will. Make up your own mind. That's always going to be our messages here. But beyond that, obviously a very big majority of people listing in the mostly negative review. Obviously, we're looking at all reviews here. They have 404 right now. Obviously, it's trending very negative. People calling out the FMVs running at 15 frames per second, the gameplay at 30, big differences between the character models and backgrounds, which are very blurry, not running at 16:9 remastered. So I totally get and understand the expression. Maybe remastered was the wrong thing. Obviously, then we've still got positive reviews. Well, it is Final Fantasy VIII that you can actually run on modern hardware, 3D graphics, but some got new textures. There's a built-in trainer that lets you roll around. PC uses like 5% and 8% of the GPU with 2D clocks. So the XBest ratio is a big key factor, it looks like, in a lot of people's disappointment overall with these reviews, and I just want to highlight those for you guys for a second. Again, it's not all going to be positive. It never will be all positive, but for me, like I said, it's really important that I have access to this game on a modern system, because honestly, it's been on my pile of shame for just that long. And it's that in which that I really appreciate Square Enix actually taking the time to do this. When you hear the interviews and how they didn't necessarily have all the source code and the work that they had to go and involve, it is what it is. Like, obviously, I would still, like I said, love the 16:9. I'd love for it to be truly remastered. And when you put this in context of, obviously, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, it begs the question of how much time do we want them spending remastering and remaking these old games versus actually bringing us new ones. And since we have no news on Final Fantasy XVI or what's to come, everything I keep hearing on Final Fantasy VII Remake has me more and more excited to be able to play that game whenever that officially fully comes out. I'm concerned with episodic, but again, not going to dive into that rabbit hole in a video review. Final Fantasy VIII's story seems to me as an adult the most fascinating story of all time. As a kid, honestly, I had no concept of what was going on. I was really confused. As I played through it the second time, I really enjoyed the characters, some of the nuances, the acting within just the character animations and things like that. Truly phenomenal. It's so cinematic, it's so connected, it's so adult in a way without it essentially leaning too heavy into it. I think Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy XII really actually lean more into kind of those adult stories, not necessarily like are they rated or are they R rated, but it's that like real characters that you can kind of get behind, relationships. They seem more natural, I would say, within Final Fantasy VIII, at least from what I've experienced so far. The story is weird, though. Obviously, it gets really convoluted later, but I loved how the Guardian Force system tied into the memory loss of these characters and things like that. And sorry if that's a spoiler, the game has been around, and it's not necessarily that big of a spoiler. It's just so interesting how they put this together and how for me, it never really measured up. So hopefully maybe I can beat this, and then maybe I can have, it truly ranked within where I think Final Fantasy games should fall. I think it's been a long time coming. I think it's obviously a weakness within the draw system, but at the same time, that's that beauty of it. It's so intricate and weird and fun, and we haven't seen anything quite like it. And you can really become truly overpowered really easily, and that's actually kind of exciting. But obviously, it's a Final Fantasy game that was its really first trying to set into that almost aesthetic what Final Fantasy XV tried to do, with kind of a fantasy based off of reality. There's various things that make sense in a real world, but in the game, they're there, and it handles it very well. And that's just all I can really say about it. Should you play Final Fantasy VIII? Is it worth it? If you've never played this game and you're a Final Fantasy fan, absolutely, you should totally dive in and enjoy. If you have, and it's just a part of your collection to have as a modern part of your Final Fantasy collection, then by all means, the $20 shouldn't hurt you or set you back too much, even if you don't end up touching it. The person who I hesitate on is the person who, is just seeing this and this would be their first entry. So if you've never played a Final Fantasy game, I think that you might go and enjoy a couple others before diving in. Not to say this isn't worth it or your time. I just think that there is a lot here that, as a fan, as somebody who's willing to put the time in and play it, obviously over 100 hours now, that's going to be where it exists. That's going to be where it lives. So I'm happy that Square Enix took the time to do it. I wish they would have taken more time, obviously with a remaster when you tag that onto it. But honestly, I'm not going to sit here and hold them accountable in this regards. It's worth the $20 I paid for it. I would pay for it again, and I'm looking forward to getting caught back up to finally finishing this game. Again, planning on finishing this game in not in invincible mode. I'm just trying to get back to where my saves left me right towards the end of this 3 both times, which is really weird. So that all being said, the only other complaint I have is that sometimes the 3x speed is a bit annoying when you're trying to run around, so you will toggle that on and off as needed, but it is very handy to try to cover large distances in short amounts of time. So I appreciate the little touches that they've had and added to the game here. If you guys have any questions about it, just let me know in the comments below. Hit me up over on Twitter or Discord, and I look forward to hearing from you about Final Fantasy VIII, where it falls in with you. One of the great things is how it connects into Final Fantasy XIV right now. Been really enjoying, obviously, Gunblade and Gunbreaker being there as well. So anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for hanging out with me this entire time. I hope you have a phenomenal day, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care.